Oh, shit. We look weird because I moved the window.
Oh, God.
Let's just fix that right now.
Woohoo!
There we are. Okay. Duh.
What did we look like, John?
Well, we just were shifted up, so it was still a view of your face, but your face floating above a sea of nothing.
That's usually how I feel, floating above a sea of nothing. So it's approps.
Blake's internal guidelines of behavior, or Bigby. As in the big bad wolf? Wasn't that from Fables? They called him Bigby?
Maybe.
I mean, it's been a while since I've read Fables.
And I never read Fables.
No, not even like the first.
You have this reaction every time.
I always think that you have. And
I know, because it would make sense for me to have read it. And yet I have not. Oh, I'm in the wrong chat. That explains it. I was like, twitch.tv/John Barrels looking awfully quiet.
Yep, no, it will look quiet. And actually, I hope it would be quiet. I hope it doesn't start filling up, because that would be strange.
Yep. There we go. I'm here.
There we are. And now you can see chat. Hello, Ellie Spot, Requiem, Greyman. We got some people. Oh, and who the fuck is Biff the Boss? I mean, is Lix, Lix, your like secret online persona?
Well, it can't be anymore, because now it's not a secret.
Secret between us and all 4 people who are in chat right now.
Yeah, but these 4 people, like, this is the core of how information gets distributed.
That is true.
Tell any one of them.
That's all right. We'll fill up. We always do. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm inoculated.
Hey, you got your 3rd jab today, right?
I did. So I feel like a ticking time bomb, just waiting to see if the the stuff sets in. What stuff? The adverse effects?
The side effects? I know the internet is absolutely awash with all kinds of things that say the 3rd dose is more, the 3rd dose is less, and I think that honestly at this point it's just sort of you roll the dice and you find out. Tomorrow you'll wake up and you'll know.
Yup. And my other 2, I was very lucky and nothing bad happened to me at all. So even if this one did hit me harder, I deserve it.
I deserve it. I don't know. I felt kind of, my first dose was the worst. Second dose I was still a little bit, but like all right. And then my 3rd dose was even better than my second. So I always had like the next day feeling kind of like, ugh, but never enough that I decided that like I couldn't work or anything like that. Although honestly, I was also at home, so it's not hard for me to drag my carcass out into in front of the computer. Just park my ass in the chair and type, damn it.
No, my arm, it's too sore. I can't work.
That's all you gotta do is just type. But either way, you're here now. We're glad to have you. That's the important part, isn't it? In the end, I know that I'm always thrilled to have you around because you're that cool.
Oh, thanks, Jorn. I'm really thrilled to be here. Pleased as punch.
As punch, you say?
Yeah. Apparently, clams and punch are very happy things.
Clams and punch.
Yeah.
That sounds like it has to be the name of like the next rock band.
Can't imagine what a clam full of punch would feel like, but probably really jubilant.
Rock band is one of those things that also I'm now actively looking for again.
Rock Band?
Yeah, the game.
Yes.
The problem is that you cannot find it for like any reasonable price.
Oh, why?
I think it's because they're not making it right now. Like they're still releasing DLC on the PlayStation 4 or whatever, which is the version that I'm trying to find. But because they're not making new ones, the only things that you can get are either instruments that people have used and so therefore they might be broken, or the like in-box, which people know and they have to hold on to just for themselves.
We were foolish to get rid of all our stuff, weren't we?
Well, we didn't. I got rid of our stuff in the end because it was all deteriorated beyond repair.
That's true. It was. We did play hard.
We played hard, and it was just like the guitars didn't, like the buttons didn't work properly anymore, and I think probably because they just spent a whole lot of time moving around from place to place and then sitting in not ideal storage.
It was our aggressive fingering that did it in, you know?
It's actually an exclamation mark Q before question. That's how to get that question in to us, and then we'll have access to it. I knew I was wrong. It was a good instinct. So you were 95% correct, because instinct is all that matters at this point. Elizabeth, you've been playing on this channel since its inception. You've been playing on another channel since almost its inception. Yeah, there you go. See?
It works. How fun.
My question to Biff the Boss is, are you always going to be Biff the Boss, or have you ever considered moving to a different channel name? There you go. That'll bake your noodle. Sorry, Chris. God damn. My brand.
My brand.
I
mean, what's the occasion? There's no way we could be having tacos on it. You've got to be like Old El Paso, the boss at this point, because the number of people that have contacted Scott, and myself for that matter, to say that they've seen him on TV talking about tacos to all of his fake twins is weird.
Is it strange that like
that's your legacy, Scott?
I haven't seen the commercial because I don't have normal television anymore.
We haven't seen it on TV either. It is on YouTube though.
Oh, well then I should be watching it on YouTube.
Why didn't you see it? Why didn't you go find it?
Because the last time that I heard about it, it wasn't on YouTube. I was told that I couldn't find it, so it looks like it's on there now.
Oh. I mean, let me see if I can find it and link it to all you fine people. Because that's more important than whatever we're here to talk about, right?
I mean, of course, I was trying to dovetail into the intro, but I was doing it in a very ham-fisted, awkward way. So.
All right, let's see. That looks like a Scott. Is it only 16 seconds?
Sorry, that goes.
Oh no, that's French. That's French Scott. We don't want French Scott. Damn it.
Oh, is it Scott but dubbed?
No, can you imagine? That would make me so happy. Actually,
I would love to see that. Part of me wonders if anyone really objects to the dub that they receive in the future, right? Like, have you ever gone to check in a project that you performed in and then watched a dub in another language just to see what you sound like in like French or Spanish or?
No, the only time that's happened is when people did it without our permission for LARPs, and we had to get them to take it down. But I got to hear what Russian Liz sounded like, and it was pretty cool.
They dubbed it?
Yeah, don't you remember?
I thought they subbed it.
No, there was a dub out there for a while. Yeah.
It's probably still out there somewhere.
I mean, probably. Oh no, I think they took the English one down. Oh no, wait. No, I lied. I found it. I lied. Hold on. Brace yourselves, Franz. Oh, everyone already found it. Well, there you go. Here it is again. Enjoy it.
Fuck. Here. I'm going to click it and then I'm going to pause it so that I don't immediately start playing it over stream.
Advertising. Today's clinic hour is brought to you by Old El Paso. Imagine if we were just eating tacos and chatting.
I almost had tacos tonight.
You should have. Scott and I had St. Hubie's after getting our shots.
Oh, you lucky ducks.
That was fun. felt like a child, like who needed a reward after getting a shot. Like, I want my veggie strips.
Being an adult means that you don't need rewards. You just get rewards.
You just buy yourself a reward.
You just convince yourself that that's what's necessary and needed at this time.
Yeah.
All right. Back to what we were originally supposed to be talking about. You've been playing online for quite some time. You've been playing in several different campaigns, one-shots and all that. And upcoming, we are going to be playing in a new campaign, something that's kind of a departure from everything that we've done so far. Of which the people who are watching the stream, you can see right down there. That is the new campaign, Neo Rokugan, which is a cyberpunk hack of Legend of the Five Rings. And what we're doing here is kind of a session -1. So we're not doing a session 0. We're not gathering with everybody, figuring out where our safety limits are and where our, making our characters and really kind of determining. What we're doing instead is we're kind of going over the business before we would get to session 0, because there's so much work involved, because there's a lot that we have to think about. I wanted to talk to the players to see where they were at, considering that we've been playing online now for how long is it? Like it's like 5.5 years now, I think.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while. It's been a long time, and in that time, having played a whole bunch, I'm kind of curious what has worked for you previously, what has not worked for you previously, and then as we move on, we're going to get into what you are excited about coming up. What are some of the things that you would like to see, and what interests you about the game that we've chosen going forward. And of course, if anybody has any questions in chat, by all means, just throw them in there. We'd love to see them and love to answer them, even if they just involve any other random stuff that you want Elizabeth to answer right here on stream. Go for it, because
full disclaimer, I will say I have not done a lot of in-depth reading into L5R yet, so if you're asking specific system questions, you're probably going to be disappointed with my answer.
I think that's fair. I mean, we're not really talking about systems today, but it is a thing that we part of what we're looking at also is making sure that we have enough time to get familiar with the book, the setting, the system, that sort of thing as we kind of continue on with this. So that helps. Episode 1 was posted the 21st of January, so we're coming up on 6 years.
Jesus.
Our 6-year anniversary is in a week.
Wow.
It's in a week. Shit. But hey, we're still having fun, I hope.
Damn right.
So, with those 6 years in mind, we've played in Exaltwitch Nexus, Changeling the Streaming, Star Wars Reach, Exaltwitch Academy, and any number of one-shots. Can you tell me, just as a right off the bat, what has been your overall perception in terms of those campaigns? Which ones would you point and say, like, I particularly enjoyed this for this reason?
Well, I can say things I enjoyed about all of them for different reasons. What I think my favorite thing about what we do is that there are common elements to each one, but they all feel different as well, which is great, because I'm the type of person who if I feel like something is stagnating, I kind of lose interest. So switching it up is a really good thing. Exaltwitch Nexus, I'm going to say what I loved about that one was it really felt like an epic adventure. We were the underdogs. Everyone was after us. And just through the power of friendship and perseverance, we triumphed over dark forces.
The real adventure was the friends you made along the way.
Exactly. And the friends we lost along the way too. Rip everyone. So that one is also really special to me because that was the first RPG that I would say Liz got really obsessed with OOC. Like, between our streams, I was researching what charms I was going to buy next, how I was going to stack them into combos. I was looking, I was like writing shit about my backstory that I never shared with anyone, but it was just for me. Just like oodles and oodles of like theory crafting and stuff.
Do you still have any of that writing?
I think so. No, you can't see it.
I'm not asking to see it. I'm just wondering whether it's the sort of thing that you'd keep.
Yeah. Because I throw it all in my, like, it's all on my computer somewhere. But knowing me, it's just called Untitled 23.
Nobody needs to look at my Notepad++. Do you use Notepad++?
So I use Notepad for Disconcordia because it's really easy to just open it up. Sometimes if I'm waiting for someone to respond, or if somebody else is AFK, I'll start like typing things up so that my response can be a bit faster. Mm-hmm. So I usually have Notepad open for those purposes.
So Notepad++ is basically Notepad, except you have tabs that you can swap between different...
Oh, then I don't have that. Never mind.
Yeah, it's a strong recommendation for anybody. Notepad++, fantastic program. It's basically Notepad, but way better. But because it has tabs, right now, my tabs are new 4, new 6, new 10, new 12, new 13, new 14, all the way through. There's a lot, which ranges from like ideas for Christmas presents to I have here the address of a mutual friend of ours so that I knew how to get to her place. I have I have a letter for Ellie Spot that she never read. Well, for a character of hers anyway.
So I'm tempted by Notepad++, but I also know that I would be that person with 20 tabs of random things and I wouldn't revisit them. Right now I have 20 tabs on my browser, and before we went live, I went through each one and justified to myself why it still needed to be there. And I actually could. So that's my life. Anyway, so that's Exalt Nexus.
So that was epic, and also deep dive into the system.
Yes.
And
epic,
your character.
Epic. It got me so, I think because it was new, I remember all of us got super excited about it. We were talking a lot in between sessions. We were all writing bonus content at a certain point. The added like letters and shit that you published as the NPCs were awesome, John. And like there was a real sense of like grandeur and the NPCs, like the antagonists are some of the ones that still to this day stick with me. Because of just like how brilliantly you characterize them and everything. So yeah, that's a big one. Near the top there. I'm not ranking them. I'm just
no. Where I'm not ranking them. But how did things change, and how did things stay the same on the next one, which was Changeling the Streaming?
Changeling, what was by far one of my favorite things about Changeling is the fact that there was no world to build. It was a world that we already existed in. One thing that causes me frustration as a player is when there's too much information to memorize, too much lore to learn, I get overwhelmed and my brain just shuts down. So I really like feeling like a badass who's like throwing out the right terms for things because my character knows them, which is why I have to shout out Requiem for Exalt Witch Academy for all of the amazing work that you did with for Gale's war knowledge specifically, because that gave a whole new level to her character. So what was really nice about Changeling is that at least the like mundane terms were already in existence. We could refer to specific streets, we could refer to specific Montreal landmarks, and we were all on the same page about that. So there was a level of comfort there, which was really nice because it meant you could stretch yourself in other ways without stressing about using the right terminology for things. So that was really cool.
I liken it to actors learning their lines.
Yeah.
That if you know your lines backwards and forwards, like if they're really in you, then you can focus on everything else. And it's such an easy shorthand to say, oh yeah, no, it's the city where you live. And then it's a lot easier for you to picture where things are and how to get to places and what it sort of feels like because you live there, and then you can focus on everything else. So
exactly. It's something that whenever we play Exalted, it's never been something I've been fully comfortable with. We'll talk about geography or how long it takes to get from one place to another, or even what method you would use to get from one place to the other. And even if your character would know it, I never did. And it was never something that I fully grasped. So it was always a little point of like, like a sticking point for me. Changeling didn't have that. Changeling, you just had to stress about other terms to learn. And there were plenty, but the location was not one of them. So that, but also the fact that I think it took us a little bit of time to get into Changeling, to settle into the groove. We've had a few people who are getting into it now who are saying like, yeah, I think it was after about 5 or 6 episodes that they started like finding their stride. And I would agree with that. Because I think we needed to get comfortable with how malleable the arts were. It's the best way I can describe it. Like once we started getting comfortable with taking these arts that are described in very broad terms but intentionally, and then using them and letting our imaginations run wild and getting more, invested in the bunks and like just the flowery language of court and all of that, then it really started to flow in a fun way. So
okay,
yeah, and the grand romances of Changeling are just like chef's kiss. Like it's great, fabulous.
Now that was how much of that was a departure for you? Because your first character, Ray, in Exalt Witch Nexus, was actually the first one who entered into a long-term relationship in that game, and in my mind, it's always like, oh yeah, that eventually happened, but it was like episode 5 or 6 or something.
It was,
right?
I think it was episode 6. Yeah, may have been 5.
Which,
yeah, it was pretty early.
To me, that's just sort of like, what? How did that? But
I know.
And in Changeling, you played a character with a very different temperament when it came to romance and love.
Mm-hmm.
And did you find that you preferred one over the other, or was it just interesting for you to experience both?
It was interesting to experience both. I'm going to take this opportunity to throw this question from Biff the Boss into featured chat because it kind of applies. When I'm creating a character, I try to make it quite different from whatever I played immediately prior. So in this case, I was like, okay, Ray was terrible at socials. She could not lie to save her life. She was rude. She was sassy. She was very foolhardy and not cautious at all. And when she found the guy she loved, like that was it. Like when they decided that they wanted to be monogamous together, like that was it. And it was a really like strong bond, just the two of them. And there was drama that came from that. And so with Sophia, I was like, okay, let's go the other way. She's not combat oriented at all, which means she's going to be really fragile at the beginning of the campaign until she can level up her arts. But I was really determined to not level up melee or any of the fighting.
Melee, firearms, brawl, athletics.
Yeah, like I think I gave her 1 melee just so she wouldn't be completely unable to do.
She would know which end of a sword to hold.
Exactly. I don't think I rolled it one time. So, but on the other hand, she was very social and very polite, and she had the etiquette down pat. She was a performer, a musician, And then I just wanted to push. I think I asked John, like, how beautiful, like, can we make this character? And you were like, well, if you put these dots in here and this and this, and I was like, great. Like, just went hard into that. So I was curious to see what playing a character like that would be like, who loved love and who loved beauty. The answer was a lot. Yeah, so that was a really big departure from Ray, but it was super fun.
Sophia is actually an example of one of the times where I really felt like a player leveraged their appearance properly.
Thank you.
And I say that just because in the storyteller system, in the in what is now known as the classic World of Darkness, they just put appearance in as a stat, and it is for some people it's a straight up dump stat. Most people just end up being like, all right, well, sure, they put a certain number of dots in appearance and then they never think about it again. And technically it makes a difference in some books, but it really is not the sort of thing that gets called on a whole lot. And yet you leveraged the fact that you decided to invest heavily in your appearance. It was your highest stat.
Yeah, my appearance performance was pretty high for a while, and then my Perkempathy pool went pretty nuts as well.
Yeah.
Shout out Ellie Spot. Perkempathy.
But you really made it work, I think, because I think that throughout that campaign, people remembered that you were a creature of overwhelming beauty. And some of it was also based on how other characters would react to yours. But it was for me, if somebody comes in and they have a strength of 5, I want that to be a big deal, right? I want people to be like, damn, you're massively strong. If somebody comes in with intelligence 5, same thing. You are beyond smart. You're incredibly intelligent. And for appearance, it shouldn't just be like, well, yep, she's hot, and then you move on. It's something that permeates your entire life. And I feel like that happened with Sophia.
Yeah, it did. And I think I pushed it even further by getting the changeling eyes flaw, which I really loved how you played it, John, because you didn't let me get away with it. Like, it's a 1 dot thing. But every time I spoke to a mortal, they like always had that moment of they were kind of like uncomfortable around her, which was really great because, you know, she's a Liam and she's Autumn She, so she, like, and the way I wrote her, she specifically wants to connect with mortals and inspire them, but just the sheer notion of like who she is and what she looks like, everyone's a little like on edge around her. It was great.
Is there a celebrity that exists out there that you would have that reaction to, where you would just not like be so enamored with them that you wouldn't be able to function normally?
For the longest time, I was trying to find a celebrity that I thought would play Sophia if we ever made this movie, and I couldn't do it. Yeah.
But in a way, isn't that a good thing?
Yes, it is, because she's supposed to be so beautiful that like she can't actually exist.
Tilda Swinton.
If I met Tilda Swinton in reality, yeah, she does have that very, like, we're not saying to play Sophia, but in terms of that reaction, I can see that for sure.
I mean, it's, to me, sometimes a character is just so instantaneously recognizable, and you can be like, great, oh, who can play that character? Oh, absolutely, that Helena Bonham Carter, boom, done, you know. And sometimes you just don't know. And I think that, to me, if you can't think of any actor who can play a character, maybe that means that you've created a character that's so invested in yourself that it would be hard to see somebody just randomly pick up and be like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. There's some layers of nuance and all that. So
yeah, that was, and I think another thing that I really loved about Changeling is because it was set in our world, in our time. It did give some opportunities to just exist. in a more casual way. Like we made a point of coming down to the bar in the exhaust at the Spark every day, and there would be coffee and there would be some kind of breakfast laid out, and everyone would just make a little plate and we would just chat. But we were streaming a game, but there were still these nice little conversations, these moments of interaction, and we really got to know the NPCs this way because we weren't always interacting in moments of stress. Like in Exaltwitch Nexus, we pretty much got to know everybody like under the gun, you know? So that was different.
When you mentioned that, it reminds me that in a previous Changeling campaign that I ran, after a while, every session, if they weren't kind of in media res in some other place because we had, ended it, in the middle of the action the session before, it always started with breakfast. It always started with breakfast. And these days, the Jonologue has kind of replaced that as sort of like the, okay, everybody, shut the hell up. It's time to start playing. But I guess breakfast, or at the very least kind of like a standard food, makes sense as sort of like, okay, well, that if this is happening, then it probably isn't the world is ending right away.
Yeah. Because
we're taking the time to drink coffee.
Yeah, and it meant that the episodes that didn't start that way were all the more jarring, as you said. Yeah, because they didn't, their routine was thrown all out of whack.
Whoa.
So yeah, just the magic of it. Yeah, that's the magic.
We moved from Changeling the Streaming to Star Wars Reach. I was like, Star Wars Edge. Yes, technically Edge of the Empire. Star Wars Reach. And what about that campaign kind of really sort of stood out to you as something that you enjoyed or that you saw as new and fresh?
I would say all of us, so all three of us, and you included, John, we pushed ourselves further than we ever had in terms of characterization and having fun with voices, and comedy, which I'm gonna say was like a really interesting departure from the stuff that we'd normally done. It was a silly campaign. It didn't last very long, but there are a lot of things that I remember fondly about it. Just because it seemed like all of us went, you know what? We're doing something completely different from what we've ever done. Let's just push ourselves, see what happens, and go from there. Do I think I could have played Melba for a year? Probably not. Well, no. I would have had to like figure out an arc for her. But I don't know. Maybe. I enjoyed our time together.
You mentioned comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say comedy, the other two campaigns prior to Reach still had, comedic elements to it.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember several things specifically involving Ray and with Sophia that, remain comedic highlights. I can mention blue paint and people know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But was that a conscious choice of yours to really sort of focus on comedy as part of Reach?
Yes, it was. I remember that we were trying to figure out what we wanted to play next, and I think at that point I was just like, you know what? I'm in the mood for something lighter, so I'm gonna think of a character that is like just kind of verging on ridiculous, and see if I can embody her, see if I can portray her.
Kung Fu Fenris asks if you could have played Melba for a year.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to answer before. And I that would have been part of my challenge. That was the challenge that I set to myself, is can I take this character who's like larger than life and who isn't particularly comfortable to play and like make it comfortable to play. Yeah, so I don't know.
I mean, speaking of comfortable to play, then we move on to Exaltwitch Academy.
Yep.
So what about Academy stood out for you?
Okay, so Academy, I loved the setting of the school. I loved that we were all being teenager-esque characters. I'm gonna say youths.
Anime youth.
And
we had a conversation about that at work today, or actually not today, it was yesterday, the day before, where specifically, even though in anime characters are like, yeah, that person's like 15, they're not drawn, or do they act like they are 15 years old? Really, anime age is like 18 to 23.
Yeah. Ray was in that nebulous space too.
Right.
I loved Gail a lot more than I thought I would. She was my big challenge to myself, and I usually shy away from playing high intelligence characters, because just going off of what I was saying before, if I, Liz, am not comfortable with the lore, I don't like playing a character who should be good at something that I'm not good at. I know we can always fudge it with rolls. I know that. It's a little hurdle that I always try to overcome. So with her, I was like, okay, let's see. Am I gonna enjoy playing her, or is it gonna stress me out every second of every day because I'm trying to be the smartest person in the room? But I really fell in love with her. So that was like just such a fun experience to play. And Pyres and Aresta as characters were so brilliantly done. Like, I just think the three of us found these PCs that just like worked, and we worked opposite each other and with each other, and then combined with the NPCs you introduced, like just the core cast was like fucking awesome.
You mentioned really kind of connecting with this character, and I'm kind of curious, and I'm in no way am I being like, really, this character? Obviously not. There's a lot of people who really liked Gale Whispered. Kung Fu Fenris already kind of catching into it there. Was there something about Gale Whispered that was significantly different than the other characters that you've played that makes her stand out in your mind like that?
Yeah, I don't know if I can really put it into words. I think my other characters, I really did try to make them empathic. Which one is it?
Empathetic would be somebody who
someone with high empathy.
Yeah, empathic characters are ones who sort of, as far as I can tell, they're ones who feel others' emotions. They, the energy of the room kind of strongly affects them. Empathetic are ones who can understand and relate to others' emotions.
Okay. So Sophia, in any case, was probably both, but Ray also had strong feelings of like loyalty and friendship, and so Gale was coming at this from, Scott and I have talked about this a bit in regards to Jorik, so it was kind of a similar journey with Gale. She first approached the group as like, what can you practically do for me? We are together. I need to know your strengths and I need to know your weaknesses so that we can work optimally together, but we are not friends. So the idea of approaching it all from a very like clinical standpoint, quantifying everyone and putting them into boxes and just this very analytical way of approaching things was very different than my more like feely characters in the past, I guess I'll say. So while that was a challenge, it was also really fun because, yeah, it was a departure from what I normally play. And then to choose the moments where she does clue in, there were some really cool moments with Siantel where she clued in that she'd fucked up and then had to figure out why she fucked up. and still tried to explain herself. But ultimately what it came down to is, you hurt me for this reason. And then she has to go, oh, it's because you care about me. Oh, okay. And register that and process that. So those moments were really fun to play.
You mentioned also that there's something difficult for you about playing a character capable of a certain level of either intellectualization or charisma or whatever, that if you can't match it, then that's difficult for you to play.
Yes, it is.
And why so, I guess?
Because
I have the same fucking problem.
Okay, I'm not going to say because we're actors, because that's a cop-out, but I do think we're not swinging swords on stream. So rolling to see if a sword hits something makes sense to me. But we are talking, and our group prioritize these conversations, these role play heavy campaigns a lot. So, if my character gives a speech, I don't want to just say, I write a speech, let's see how good it is. I want to write the speech. Or if I'm giving if I'm being the tactician and giving my Fang orders, I'd love to be able to add in that extra bit of flavor. It's just that it's just that urge to spice up the scenes and to give it a little extra life and dimension that I am not saying everybody needs to do. I'm saying that we all, like John and I think Scott too, I'm pretty sure Kate too, because she wrote a lot of Val speeches. I think we all just have that kind of itch to be that for our characters. So yeah.
It's funny, when you play video games, do you use hints a lot? Walkthroughs?
Depends on the game.
Right.
Is it King's Quest VI, Ere Today Gone Tomorrow, where you can't get through the catacombs without the map? Yes. I don't know.
I ask this because for me, one of the things that we get hammered with a lot in chat is you didn't roll read intentions, right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of those is actually because if I don't miss my guess, a lot of it is that you like figuring things out on your own, making your own decisions, reading my characterizations and my performance, and then extrapolating from it. And the same with puzzles, same with investigation, right? You don't mind rolling to see if your character sees a thing, because that makes sense. I may not describe something if it's hidden, but you don't necessarily like rolling to see if your character figures out the clues, because you want to figure out the clues.
Exactly. And the perfect example is when it comes to romance. I mean, if we're in a scene together and your character has romantic feelings for my character, I can probably tell. And if I can't tell, then I don't necessarily want to roll for that, because
that I don't deserve it.
Maybe it's not meant to be revealed yet. So that's sort of a thing that, yes, I want to roll read intentions on a regular basis. And I think we got better about reminding ourselves to do it. But I love discovering things in the scene, playing it out with another person. And then just taking that knowledge and applying it to future interactions with them. As opposed to writing it down on a sheet.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No.
Right? I think that's just a key part of the way that you like to play.
Yeah. Well, I get in it too, as well. If I'm in a scene, it's really hard to remind myself to snap out of it and make a roll.
Dice exist.
If I'm writing an email to somebody and Scott comes up to ask me a question, I will not hear what he says unless I stop writing, turn my face away from the monitor, look at him, and hear the question. It's kind of the same thing with the scene. If I'm in it, you cannot jolt me out of it that easily. Scott can confirm. So, yep, learning a lot about how my brain works over the pandemic too. But that's cool.
I mean, I don't think that anybody has any outward complaint about that specifically, but it is it is just a natural part of playing in any kind of game. You are doing your best to play the way that you want to play, and that doesn't necessarily jive with the system or with how other people would approach the same situation. Which is not to say that we mind when audience are like, hey, do a thing, because also our audience is kind enough to not get angry when we don't do what they say.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most important thing. Like, you can say, oh, you didn't perk empathy, or oh, it's actually this pool. And if we respond, yeah, I didn't, that was intentional, or oh, I forgot, they just go, cool, and they move on. Because that's what it is. It's when things get weaponized, you know, when forgetting a rule or something gets used as ammunition against you. It's not fun, and it's something that plagues a lot of the bigger RPG streams out there. So I'm just once again shouting out how grateful I am to our community for not doing that, because we do read the chats and we do read the comments, and it all, yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that I don't hate the comments, but I also think that's just a function of our community and its size.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, when we have encountered people who are quite obviously arguing in bad faith, they don't stay.
Yeah, like I think I go back to some of the earlier like Exaltwitch or Changeling episodes, which have considerably more views because they're a new campaign, and then they have more comments as a result, and I scroll through, I'm like, I don't recognize half these names. It's because they didn't stick around, or they didn't stick around to watch us live, which probably means they found too many things that didn't really jive with their preferences, their style, and they went on their merry way, which is fine. Totally fine. It's when people stick around just to be contrary that I'm like, why? Like, you're not having fun. You're not enjoying yourself. Please find something you like more. I'm begging you.
I think that there are some people who absolutely enjoy being contrary, and not necessarily in a trolling fashion. They just really enjoy debate. But
we don't necessarily like debating back. So if they want to debate, that's cool.
So we've been through.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hi.
So we've been through the 4 campaigns. Now I might ask, I don't know whether this is going to be easier or harder for you, but in those 4 campaigns, there must have been some things that kind of didn't ring as true to you as either a player, a person, an actor. Were there nights that stream ended and you fled home, shedding gossamer tears and burying them into your pillow? Were there times where you came home and just had to take the axe out into the woods and just chop wood for a solid 3 hours so that you could get all the rage out?
Absolutely. I didn't even have woods at that time, and I found woods just so I could destroy them.
Huh? Is that the sound effect for that emote?
Oh yeah. One that stands out to me as an example, because it was a storyline that just, I'm not going to say it frustrated me, because honestly I don't remember my emotional reaction to it, but I do know that it didn't stick with me as much as others did, was when we brought elements of Exaltwitch into Changeling. And you've brought it up before, so I'm not going to like rehash it, but like that's an example that often comes to mind as we closed the door of this campaign, and now I'm having to sort of reconcile this connection with a PC from another campaign that wasn't mine. And so just like, it didn't mesh, but like,
that didn't work.
Star Wars didn't mesh for us. It's fine. And it certainly like didn't ruin the campaign, because we kept streaming for infinity afterwards. So I think just that was an experiment, and it was a necessary experiment, because like, of course we're going to try a crossover at some point just to see how it goes. We tried it. I mean,
I think that there was still fun to be had. I just think that the actual link ended up not being important. The storyline may have seen some success, but it was despite the link, not because of it.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah, so I'll throw out that as an example.
Just while you're thinking, I will throw that out there. Just don't. I mean, in much the same way that I'm like, don't take characters and move them to other campaigns because they come with their own baggage and they come with their own expectations. Just don't link campaigns at random. Just don't. It's probably not going to be a good time.
Oh no, it's gone, isn't it?
Look, Kung Fu Fenders, my advice is off my own bad beats.
Another one. But this has come up often, and it's really just me wishing I was better at deciphering your riddles, John. So,
is that a cat complaining in the background?
Yeah, definitely. It's Scott's feeding them, so we're going to hear some. And in fact, the bad man, Mr. Max, is probably going to be locked in here for his dinner.
Nice.
Because he can't be trusted. He snarfs down his food and then tries to eat everyone else's food. When we were trying to get into the manse in Exalt Witch Nexus, when I was trying to decipher the Broken Flight Prophecy in Changeling, when there were another few riddles. Anyway, I don't remember them, but there were a few instances where I was like, oh, this is such a good riddle. And then I was like, oh, I can't figure it out.
I'm defeated.
The camera facing me and it's waiting for me to say something brilliant. I don't know what it is. So, the answer is, which I came to realize with the Broken Flight Prophecy, is I got the prophecy and I said, Sophia's going to go and look at this for many hours. And then the stream ended. And then I messaged John. And then I got some hints. And then I rolled off camera. And then I came back with new ideas the next week. And that's the answer. That was what worked for me, is like stepping away from the stream to process riddles and prophecies, dream interpretations, without that added pressure of an audience.
Man, puzzles are hard. It is a thing that echoes in my head, and it is so uncharitable of me to think of it in terms of this. But the easiest way that I can say it is that, like, players are smarter than you think they are, and they are way stupider than you think they are in a lot of ways. And it's not, and the reason why is because so much of it comes down to what naturally occurs to me, and what naturally does not occur to me is not the same as what other people will.
Well, what's the perfect example of that game that we play with the code words? What's that called?
Oh, Decrypto.
Decrypto. I'm trying to convey to you, I'm trying to telegraph to you certain hints and a word that's super obvious to me. And you're not thinking the same way as I am. And sometimes it just, no matter how obvious it seems, we're just two ships passing in the night. It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are times where sometimes a player will come up with a solution to not even necessarily a puzzle, but even to a whole storyline, and be like, oh, well, clearly it's because of this. And I'm like, no, it's so much more complicated than that. There's so many, whatever. and that's okay, because part of me is like, are you sure that you're satisfied with that? Doesn't that seem simple? And the answer is that the player has come up with all the complexities and all the nuance in their own head, because you've created it with nuance and complexity. They just didn't get the same ones, and that's fine. Yep. But then you come up with a puzzle and you're like, okay, this is going to be a good puzzle, right? You might even be like, this is a puzzle and I do not intend for anyone to be able to solve this because you don't have all the clues yet. And then a player will look at it, and then for 6 hours, they're just going to be staring at this piece of paper that you've given them, going over it and over it. And you're like, but how could you not get it? How could you not understand? How could you not see the references that I've made? How could you, and even something as simple as my referencing an NPC of yours on Disconcordia with a common nursery rhyme. But first off, anybody who's ESL doesn't necessarily know the nursery rhymes. Second, you may have never heard this particular nursery rhyme. 3, you might not think of this particular nursery rhyme anyway because you don't have the same relationship to your character's name that I do. You know, so many different things can happen. And in the end, I'm sitting there being like, oh, I'm so clever. And no one gets it. No one. And I'm alone, staring at myself, realizing that I am not nearly as clever as I thought I was, because too clever by half means that you aren't clever at all.
The thing about Disconcordia that helps immensely is having Google open on my second monitor. So if somebody makes a reference and I'm like, I think my NPC would know this, I can copy the text, paste it into Google, and see what quote they're referring to. And all of a sudden I can respond with it, oh, you're quoting Tennyson, blah, 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 because like my character would know that. I don't know. But yeah, like when it's on stream and you don't have the ability to like check out briefly and look something up or verify something, and you don't want to halt play, so instead, in an attempt to make things better, you just pause in silence for like 10 minutes because that's somehow better. Yeah, we've gotten considerably better at this because I think we've all taken a slice of humble pie as well, and we can all say, hey, John, I don't get it. And then you go, okay, would you like me to give you some hints or would you like some time with it? And then we can say, I'd like some time with it. I'd like some OOC time with it. Thank you. And then moving on. It's great.
It is one of the panic moments that you'll get when you're running a game and when you're playing in a game where somebody gets stuck and there's just this moment of like, oh no, because sometimes the player doesn't want help, right? Yeah. And sometimes also the storyteller is just sitting there like, figure it out, because that's quite literally all I had planned. So, you know, I was expecting you to take an hour to puzzle this one out. I'm not helping you. And then you're really just screwed. Hey, Thanatoasted. But yeah, it is a reminder that I've had to give myself several times that the most elaborate puzzles or things that I'm like, I'll keep this hidden, players will just latch onto it like this. And then there are times where I will think that I've given the game away, and absolutely not.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
It's hard. The best suggestion I can give for streamed games with riddles and puzzles is, if possible, putting them towards the end of the stream means that there is the option to either solve it on the spot or take it away. Don't make it something that is necessary for the plot to progress. That's me giving a general piece of advice, not to you specifically, John, because I think you do that anyway. But yeah, making it, giving people the option to step away with it for a bit and still feel cool when they come back the next week.
Was there anything else in the campaigns that you struggled with that wasn't your favorite?
Funny because it was still interesting, but I will say in Exaltwitch Academy, after we, spoiler alert, lost the school, and we went on the run kind of thing, there were some great elements to it. It reminded me a lot of Exaltwitch Nexus, because that was also like us against the world kind of feel. And what was so interesting about Academy is that we were positioned in this place of tremendous privilege, and we were sort of forced to reckon with ourselves and with how we've been brought up and how we've been trained. And when we were taken out of the school setting and suddenly became sort of enemies of the state, we then became the underdogs again. So it was a lot easier to root for us because we were against the big bad empire. So but that's a challenging thing, like, you know, having gone from this big campaign where you're playing Solars to suddenly playing Dragonbloodeds, like, you know, you want to put them through the ringer. But I would have been curious to see if we could have kept the storyline going at the school and how different that would have been. Or if the school hadn't been destroyed, but if we'd graduated and then moved to like a more established place in the realm, and how much harder it would have been for us to fight back against it because we were getting so many perks as a result. So that's not necessarily something that I think was done poorly, because I still had loads of fun with it, but more like what would have happened if we'd kept winning.
So we discussed this.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to turn from something when you're benefiting. Like, it's a lot harder to turn against the status quo when you are literally benefiting from the status quo. So, yeah.
You're speaking as someone with privilege?
Yes. Yes, I am.
It is something that Scott mentioned as well. Although he put it as the home base metaphor, right? The idea that what he enjoys is being able to interact with a location and its inhabitants in a non-stressed situation. The idea that you can explore what it's like to be it Ray or Sophia or Melba or Gale Whispered, with a regular cast of characters when it's not always that your life is on the line.
Yeah.
Or your reputation, or your, and that's not to say that there aren't stakes. You say the wrong thing to an NPC, and that NPC is just going to be like, well, I thought I wanted to give you smooches, but now I only want to give you the boot. I want
to kill you.
Right. So there are absolutely, still stakes there. But the idea that it isn't like, well, our entire game can blow up at any moment, sort of makes a difference, I think. And it's something that I'm extrapolating here. So I'm I'm confirming with you that you were saying you really liked it when you were at school, and not necessarily just like, oh yeah, we're all, facing off against the combined might of several different houses, but that it was nice to be able to, there are other students around that we can talk to.
That was nice. But that comes with its own set of problems, because I think what would have made the school experience that bit extra would have been actually creating this classroom environment, which is just an insane amount of extra work for you, which I think none of us were interested in signing you up for, and you weren't able to do, which is more than fair. So I don't know how much deeper into the school experience we could have gone without a lot of additional work, in the sense of like creating curriculums and even the beginnings and ends of lectures. And we could have had like school events, I guess, even though they were in a military academy. I guess they could have had dances.
Oh my god, or did somebody invite you to the homecoming?
We had a Sadie Hawkins dance.
Sadie Hawkins dance? Did you actually have a Sadie Hawkins dance?
We did not have a Sadie Hawkins dance. Did you? No, you didn't. I know.
How would it be possible? Technically, I guess, any dance that didn't take place at my school was a Sadie Hawkins dance.
That's true.
I attended a high school that was only for young boys. Boys? I don't recommend it for the boys. The girls, that's another question. But we mentioned this, but I guess we can take some inspiration, I guess, if we look back at Harry Potter and taking the author out of the equation, because, screw that. The idea of Harry Potter is that everyone's like, at first you saw a whole bunch of classes because they helped to establish the universe. And then you stopped kind of tuning into classes unless it was people just having a discussion in the middle of class, or if it was, once again, Defense Against the Dark Arts, which was the class where inevitably things were going wrong.
Always.
And that was the struggle, I guess, for me, was recognizing that sitting in class isn't necessarily that interesting. but I didn't know how to make either the beginnings or ends of classes additionally interesting. Plus, then I roped myself into a bigger campaign than perhaps we needed it to be. And I'm just looking at this in terms of, me trying to find places to improve. It's not I'm not saying like, well, Academy was bullshit.
No, it was so much fun.
Well, I sort of feel like any role-playing game that lasts longer than 2 sessions, assuming that that's the intention, right? The truism in my old gaming group back when I was in, CJEP was people would be like, yeah, we've got a long-running campaign going, and nothing would get past 3, right? You get 3 sessions, and then things would fall apart. Yep. And so I always kind of consider if you can get to session 4, you're probably doing okay. But we got to session 39.
Yeah, you did
something
amazing,
like that, right? Like, and again, that's also not necessarily to say that it was a failure. 39 weeks is still a solid chunk of time to go through that. So.
Yeah. The only other thing I can suggest is maybe if we had come up with like projects or assignments that we had been given by the different classes. So not necessarily needing to write lectures, but between Sundays we come up with, okay, so you've had an assignment this week and this is your partner that you're assigned to work on it with. And that sort of creates different dynamics and you're literally like trying for a good grade, but it could be something like, I don't know, a new swimming drill or some shit. I don't know, but something like that. I don't know.
I'm going to say that the turtle brings something up that I think is actually a really, this would have been a way to do it, which I am now like smacking myself that I didn't think of it. Would have just been like Defense Against Anathema being a regular class. Yeah. Oh no, I have an assignment for Defense Against the Anathema, but also my literature teacher needs me to write a whole poem about love.
And then I still like the idea, because even while we were at school, I was like, okay, there's a secret anathema here. We all know it. They're either one of the teachers hiding in plain sight, or they're like hiding in the basement somewhere, So finding them and then deciding if you're going to keep them secret and try to learn things from them, or if you're going to turn them in, was like a kind of interesting conflict that I thought we might run into.
Yeah, it is.
As it turned out, we sort of found out who they were at the same time that the school was being attacked, so we had a common enemy anyway, so it was quite easy to ally with them.
Right. It is also, of course, the balance of we want to have a schoolyard atmosphere, but we also know that there's certain ways and certain things that we like to do when we play. And it also explains why games such as like Kids on Bikes or Kids on Brooms, we would probably have to change them no matter what, just because as much as I really like the ideas and concepts and settings of a lot of these things, I'm also not comfortable playing a 14-year-old, in bridging the gap between pubescence and their previous lives. Like I
don't need to relive that.
No. It's also why Masks was never considered, because in Masks specifically, to progress, there were things like you need to kiss your crush, and I'm like, no, that doesn't. I mean, part of it is that also, I guess you could redo those if you really needed to, but I don't like progressing someone's character based on that so explicitly.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not to mention, like, if you're Ace, what if you don't want to kiss anyone?
Exactly. You shouldn't have to kiss anyone if you don't want to. Yeah.
But you should have to kiss every boy. All the boys.
Lots of kissing.
You mentioned you don't like playing characters similar to what you have played in the past, right? You try to.
Yeah.
Do you feel though that this might create a pendulum effect for you? You know,
Definitely.
you're either playing one type of character and then you swing to the other side, but now you have to play something different from this one, so you just swing right back?
100%. So my challenge is like Ray and Sophia were quite different from each other. There were some things that they overlapped with, but they're pretty different in terms of their skills. But then as soon as we hopped on a third game, I was like, all right. And now we find what the Liz tropes are, you know, the things that it's really hard for me to play a character. Perfect example. I hate playing characters with low perception. Don't know what it is. I just can't do it. Even if I start with low perception, inevitably I'll start building it up, buying it up with XP.
Yeah.
So I've just come to accept this as a fact of life.
But like, that's okay, isn't it? Part of it is that perception is in some ways, in my opinion, depending on the storyteller or GM or DM that you have, perception is often the best stat.
Yeah.
Period, because it basically is the I get to continue button. Did you notice this? Great. We can keep going. Did you not notice this? Then you can't keep going, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, as
it
Ellie
is
Spot,
exactly what Ellie Spot's saying. That's 100% it. And often, like, perception is not in, I don't think, any of the storyteller systems, but isn't there something where perception is linked to like initiative or combat? I don't know.
yeah,
It can help you detect ambushes.
Well, depending on the system, actually, these days, a lot of systems, perception is no longer a stat.
Yeah.
In Chronicles of Darkness, perception doesn't exist. They took it away. And I think in 5th edition, I don't remember if perception is in 5th edition or not. It might be. But I agree with you. There are things that I definitely like to have a lot in my characters. If willpower is a stat, I like having my willpower either be very high or very low. I hate being in the middle. Because I like to either play the challenge of somebody who is weak-willed, or I want to be the badass who can kind of like withstand whatever somebody is trying to throw at them. And that can often be frustrating, I imagine, to storytellers, because they're like, but I have this big intimidating character. And I'm like, yeah, but me. Right?
Well, like classic Aresta, you know, no matter what you said to her, she would not bend the knee ever. It's great.
Right.
In terms of the pendulum effect, though, like, I then try to just zoom in a little bit more. Like, if I go from heavy combat to heavy social back to heavy combat, okay, can I choose a different type of combat? Ray was all brawl, so when I went to Melba, I was like, fine, she's all about firearms, because I've never played a firearms heavy character.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we went to Exalted Witch Academy, I'm like, fine, thrown, great, never gone that way before. So that was like me trying to go like, just like zoom in even more, say, okay, yes, there's still combat, but like it's different styles.
That's actually an interesting. We've got 2 questions from the Crosshair. One that came a little while ago, one just now, that I think are very relevant to this. So the Crosshair asks, is there a character type you want to avoid playing? For example, a rifle shooting military vet or an investigator PI?
So I think I appreciate that these are examples. I think the rifle shooting military vet would be hard for me to play for reasons that I stated earlier. I just don't have the terminology that I would feel comfortable and confident playing a character like that. It's the same thing with playing a character who's like a leader in a system that I'm not familiar with. Like, I feel very confident playing a matriarch or a patriarch in any of the Good Society campaigns that we run, because I know that system and I know that world backwards and forwards. I feel comfortable leading. But if it's a new system or something that we're homebrewing, that's a lot harder to do. So I will say, like, I'm very unlikely to play a leader type character unless I know the world really well. Liz. But otherwise, yeah, perception, generally, I'm going to give myself at least decent perception stat, if it is a stat. And then in terms of, is there a storyline character arc you haven't explored?
So the question here is there a storyline or a character arc that you haven't explored but would want to, such as romance the thing or find the secret MacGuffin?
I've never played, I don't think I've ever, well, I sort of did, kind of with Nyx, with Full Party, but not fully. I haven't played a character whose motivation is revenge, and I've always been kind of interested in the challenge of playing that without making it tropey. So that's...
You don't want to be the Inigo Montoya.
No, but I do like the idea of somebody who's just like, yep, you ruined my life when I was 13, and I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to excel, and I'm going to make friends. But if we ever cross paths again, I will kill you. I will stop at nothing to do this kind of thing. So that's kind of fun. The idea of somebody, a character, kind of like what Braum dealt with at the beginning of Changeling, trying to discover something about your past that's foggy.
So you want to play the amnesiac character now?
No.
All right,
no.
Done.
No.
I will just take your character sheet and I will fill it out, and you won't get to see it.
But yet fun. But yet, I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, just trying to figure out who they are. Yeah, Gale was probably the one who had the grandest ambitions from the get-go. She knew exactly what she wanted. Anytime anyone asked, what do you want to do? She was like, I'll tell you, and you're not gonna like it. Ray didn't have any grand goals at the beginning. They formed, and same thing with Sophia, sort of, but yeah, that was fun, like making this like huge goal for Gale, and then just every decision she made was in an attempt to get it.
Making strong character goals is something that I think is it can really help. I don't think it's necessarily a requirement, but I also think that it's one of the reasons why Reach floundered a little, was because I don't think any of the three characters had such a specific goal that the three of you were being driven forward enough.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's, and that's not an indictment of any of you. It's actually more of an indictment of myself for not figuring that one out. But also, sometimes all you need is one character to have that, and then you discover yours along the way. But if no one has it, then in the end, there's kind of this, I guess we're just going to keep coasting. And that doesn't necessarily work as well. But yeah, Biff the Boss points out that in Legend of the Five Rings, hey, 36, thanks so much. In Legend of the Five Rings, they ask you to create a duty for yourself, but also your passion or your drive, because the two can be put into conflict. And your passion or drive can be something like revenge. And that passion or drive doesn't necessarily mean, okay, well, my revenge means I have to go kill somebody. It could, just like you said, be like, I'm going to live well. I'm going to prove that I don't need you, Dad. I don't, right? Like, that's as easy as it can go. But it's, I do think that that's something that we'll be able to take a look at and figure that out. And Requiem Lost mentions that in Exalted 2nd Edition, which you did play, yes, they had motivations. Every character had a motivation, a specific, like, I want to do this. And yeah, if you hit a wall, you could always find a way to move forward because you had motivation. 3rd edition has defining principles, or defining intimacies, I should say, which you can also use to sort of direct yourself. It's actually one of the things that I really like about the intimacy system, and why I'm still hoping that going forward, intimacies can still be a thing, even if they don't necessarily have as much mechanical benefit But then again, you never use them for their mechanical benefits really anyway.
No, it helped to build a character. It's a really great great way of forcing you to. It's like when you're writing a script and you pitch your idea to somebody and the person asks really hard questions about your script and you have to come up with it on the spot. It's kind of like that. It forces you to dig deeper into your PC, so you can't just coast, which is hard, but it helps ultimately, because it's kind of like a little roadmap for how you would respond to certain situations.
I think it also gives you the opportunity to shorthand NPCs somewhat. The idea of like, what really makes this person tick? And then you can say, oh yeah, they have a defining intimacy of blah, and a minor intimacy of blah, which means that they care about it, but it just isn't as big a deal. I think that kind of shorthand can really help. If a character doesn't matter as much. Oh, nice. The only way that would have been better is if Scott was wearing like a cute little apron and roller skates.
Thank you, Scott. I messaged him on Facebook. I was like, can I get a Kraken refill, please?
I have to admit that there have been times where Kate will sneak things to me, but I think that some of that is her professional pride, that she tries to do it as much as she can without being seen.
I can sneak it to Scott when he's streaming, but here, unfortunately, the door is in my shot, right there. So you literally can't get in without appearing in my frame. Whoops.
I mean, that's totally fair.
Behind the curtain, how the sausage gets made.
All right. So
yeah,
we've kind of figured out some things about where you like to be and what you like to do, and some things that you're a little less keen on. And now we're moving forward with a campaign that basically is a combination of two very specific kind of feels and settings. One, the idea of a near future cyberpunk setting. Yeah. And two, the idea of a fictionalized version of samurai and Bushido. Cyberpunk as a theme, what attracts you to it? Nothing. Fuck Cyberpunk.
Largely the aesthetic.
Okay.
I just think the cyberpunk world building potential is fucking stellar, and I think when done well and when everyone's on the same page, you can create this really vibrant, rich world to play in. And then and the world itself has tremendous potential variations that you can go. Like you can come up with any character concept and make it work in Cyberpunk, which I think is really awesome. There aren't so many campaigns or systems or settings that you can do that with. But with Cyberpunk, I truly believe that it's flexible enough that you can explain almost anything into existing into it, you know?
Right.
So I'm really excited by that. I'm also really, nervous about it because of all the stuff that I said before. The idea of like knowing the terms and being confident enough in the world to be able to say things with conviction that my character would know.
Just add nano in front of every other
pretty
man.
Much.
Oh, I see. I've got my nano sword, and then I'm going to go eat my nano lunch.
My nano Kraken here, my nano milk in the other hand, like just everything. It's insufferable. Yeah, so I'm excited by the challenge, but I also know that I'm very inexperienced with Cyberpunk as a setting. I've never played an RPG set in it, and I've played Shadowrun and the hint of Netrunner, and that's it.
So I don't know if you're actually all that different from the rest of us. I mean, Scott and I have played a lot of Netrunner, but I personally have not played a Cyberpunk RPG, to my recollection at least.
It's because you're living one. Pew, 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 pew.
Ah.
Oh God.
Hey,
John, Jack in.
no one makes reference to my nano boyfriend in Lives.
Uh-oh.
He is my giga boyfriend. Uh, the idea I think that draws me into Cyberpunk is the idea of near future. But one thing that Scott had mentioned, and I'm going to ask you, is that one of the themes in some variants of Cyberpunk is very much the idea of nihilism. That the world has gone to shit, and that the only thing you can kind of do is, burn out fast by living as hard as you possibly can.
Oh. Yeah.
Is that something that appeals to you or not?
Sure, why not? That kind of reminds me a lot of Exalted Twitch, Exalted in its own way, like, yo, the world is a powder keg, and we can do these epic things, and they may very well result in our deaths, but like, YOLO.
I think though that for me the balance is that I don't want it to be YOLO from minute 1 to minute N.
That would be exhausting. It
would be exhausting, but then it's also essentially going back to the idea of Exalted Nexus, right? I think that one of the questions that was asked last time was, will the players have the chance to make big changes to the world? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. Like, of course, if that's where the players want to go. But also, it may be as simple as you come across somebody in the street who, is robbing a liquor store. And what do you do about that? The person who is repairing your nano armor has nano fractures in their nano heart. So there are, various different kind of things, but then we also kind of get into L5R, this concept of a world based on a fictionalized version of Japan, alongside a bunch of other extra culture thrown in there. And is this something that interests you? These concepts?
I think so. I think it will interest me. Like, I've just done the barest cursory reading at this point, but
right.
What I've read so far, it does intrigue me.
Yeah.
Because it seems like correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it will be easier to create, to pinpoint your goals and aspirations in a system like L5R. Because of the different clans that exist. Mm-hmm. So when you create a sort of character, have a sort of concept, and then you find a clan that sort of fits with that, then from there you can read more into the clan and go, okay, these are the things that are really important to me, that are important to my clan, therefore they're also important to me for these reasons because of what I've already established about my character. So it gives you like this support, this system to work within, which I think is really cool. Like, mm-hmm. in Exalted, it does help a little bit, but it's more about what your character can do and not what your character cares about.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we're going to have to figure out when we get together for session 0 is whether or not the three of you want to play characters of the same clan, right? Now, because some games, that's the default. Everyone's like, yeah, we're all Spider Clan, we're all Unicorn Clan, we're all X, because it kind of gives you a default as to why the three of you are together and travel together and all that. Or whether you want to play different clans, or maybe two of you are of one clan and one of you is of another. Mm-hmm. Similar to Exalted Academy, right? Like, two of you were Cathak, one of you was Ladal. And I think that that's something that interesting for us to look forward to.
John, two of us for Ladal, come on.
I mean...
Never forget!
Don't worry, no, we're not going for past edition clans. But then I'll also say that I know that one of the games that you really enjoy is Horizon Zero Dawn. And we're borrowing some elements of that for this game. The concept of there being a mixture of a different kind of society, but also of a higher tech that exists, and that the monsters that we are worried about are actually monsters that we built, but that we no longer have control over in the same way. So I know that that's one of the ways that I'm looking at it more and more these days. You know, the idea of a wall separating Shadowlands from the rest of the world, and it's really just people trying to protect from mechanical AI that, you know, have gone rogue and who no longer want...
They're corrupted or whatever.
Yeah, they're corrupted or the like. So that's... all of you are the black sheep of your various clans. Together you'll make your own clan with blackjack and brothels.
Clan ass crack. Together again.
There is actually in L5R there are systems so that every player is Ronin, not a member of a clan. So we can figure that out, but there are things I think to look forward to. Is there anything in particular that you're kind of looking forward to exploring with your character? And I say this knowing that one of the things that I'm going to have to emphasize to all players, something that I recently figured out, on Disconcordia, we send out messages, we call them ST notes to our players, sort of things that we just kind of like, keep an eye on this, think about this. And if there was an ST note that I knew that I had to throw out to my players, it's feel free to play what you want to play. All three of you are very forgiving of what other people want to play and being like, well, I'll fit in. And part of me wants to be like, just I want to know what you want. We can make it work, but you don't necessarily have to be, well, I was going to play this, but now that I know that Scott's playing it, I can't do that anymore. So maybe I just want to know, is there something...
That's fair.
Yeah. Is there something about your character, that you want to play? Because I will admit, maybe you don't necessarily want to play the exact same character as somebody else, but if I never find out what you wanted, we'll never know if Scott was like, well, I had 3 things that I wanted and I couldn't pick, so I just went with the first one. Mm. And you were like, but that's really the only thing I wanted to play. But if you never bring that up, we'll never find out, and Scott will never be like, oh, well, I had 2 other concepts that I was equally interested in.
Yep. The only caveat to that I will say is it has happened. I don't remember when, actually possibly for full party, where I waited until I'd heard what everyone else was thinking of doing. And then I started to craft my character to fill in the gaps as a challenge to myself. Mm-hmm. It felt like kind of closing your eyes and drawing character traits out of a hat to see like, okay, can I make a character work out of these different elements? It may have been full party. I don't know. I definitely did it. So that's the only thing, is if you're genuinely excited by that challenge, then like, yes.
See, but if you're
doing it, if you're like martyring yourself, don't fucking do that.
Like that's totally legit. That's actually what I do a lot of the time, because I play all the characters I want to play. I run games, right? Like if I desperately wanted to play a dolphin, and a dolphin that would sound...
Please. Please, that's all I need.
God damn it.
Please, John.
If I was playing a dolphin, and of course when that dolphin is communicating with, you know, his brothers and sisters, and he's going I can't do a dolphin. I just can't. I really just I cannot.
It's my favorite thing you've ever done, John, and I hope you appreciate it. I love the dolphin so much.
I can play whatever I want, and so therefore, if I'm a player, oftentimes I'll be like, I'll see, I'll see what other people are playing, because if I wanted to play the strong silent type, I could do that whenever I wanted to. So, is that what you're interested in for this game, or do you have ideas? They don't even necessarily have to be, well fleshed out ideas, but just an idea of where you want to take your character, what kind of character you want to play.
Okay, I'm good. And I thank you for this gift you've given me.
It's not your birthday today.
It feels like it. I feel the joy that it's my birthday. Okay. So one thing that we had sort of talked about, and this is like, we might realize that this is not feasible, everyone, so disclaimer. But a character I have been dying to play for years and years and years and years is an android. And so what I would love to sort of explore and examine a little bit more with John, and also with the other two players at the table, is if playing an android type character is something that is feasible in this version of the game that we're creating, and also sustainable. Can I create a character like that who has an arc, who isn't just gonna be one note, who's gonna have different dimensions and nuances, but it definitely scares me in terms of the challenge, and it also goes back into the lore as well, because who would know all the terms of this system? A fucking android. So I would need to know this, and I would need to have it down pat. But yeah, the challenge is exciting to me. So
what is it about? And I guess what I'm questioning, is it that you are an artificial body or an artificial mind, or both?
So I think what I was thinking of is it is an artificial body, and they've been programmed with such, like, in such a way that is to mimic a human-ish way of processing information. So while they have access to significantly more data than maybe the typical human would, they've still been programmed to kind of use their judgment in certain situations. Like, it has to be highly advanced. But the difference is that they would have been programmed to be a certain type of android. And I don't know exactly what that would be yet, but to fulfill a certain, like, function.
Right.
And that would be the area that they would be super knowledgeable in and super adept in, and that's where I would put a lot of my stats.
And is the challenge that being an artificial life form is the norm, and you're just like, yeah, I happen to be artificial and that's that? Or is it that you are somehow unintended?
I don't know. That is something I would actually want to talk to you about, because one of my favorite things to do is craft backstories like this with you. And especially because this system, or the setting, is basically going to be homebrewed. That's something I would want to build into the world that we were making. Am I like a deviant, or am I the norm? And if I am the norm, why have I paired up with this other group?
Right.
Why have I linked up with them?
So
yeah.
The questions that I would start thinking about in my head when you want to propose this, it reminds me of a time that I played in a very casual D&D game, where there was a character who wanted to have a mount who was not a horse. It was some other kind of creature, because the character was small, and therefore they were like, could I have a mount that's I I don't remember what it was, so I'm going to say for the sake of the anecdote, could I ride a wolf instead of a horse? And the DM was like, oh, I don't know, like I don't really want to start getting into it. And she was like, the only thing that I want is to say that I have a wolf who is a friend who rides with me. The wolf never attacks anybody. The wolf's not a combatant. The wolf has no mechanical advantage. There's nothing different about the wolf. It's just, I literally just want a horse that is in the shape of a wolf. That's all I want. And I remember sitting there watching this exchange and thinking, give her the fucking wolf. It doesn't change anything in your game. Realizing, of course, that maybe the dungeon master had like a thing where it was like, yeah, but like, what about when everybody rides into town? Are people going to say like, well, that's a wolf and I'm scared of wolves or whatever? But I realized it was something that this player wanted so badly. It was like the one thing she was asking for. And I was like, just give her the goddamn wolf. Here, you're presenting me with something that you're like, this is something that I've always wanted to play. I've always really been interested in it. And so I want to know, and what we will talk about on or off camera, the concept of like, what is it about this fantasy that interests you? But then the concerns that I would have would be things like, okay, I have to look at rules. Is it going to be weird if you have an artificial body? Are you then going to be like, well, yeah, well, to not break immersion, I can be repaired instead of needing a doctor. I need
healing.
For healing. Yeah. Instead of a doctor, I need a mechanic. Well, maybe that's okay. But then what if you came to me and said, yeah, and I can basically, my entire body can be obliterated and I can be rebuilt and it wouldn't matter because the only thing that matters is my brain, and my brain is intact. So I can die and be resurrected. And I might be like, well, yeah, but that messes with some things. I might ask, are you going to then say that your emotional range is different from the other characters? Maybe that's not a problem. But then what if I'm also like, yeah, but also I know you, and I know that one of the things that you really like is engaging in romance. Does this mean that you can't do that anymore? And is that going to be something that right now you're okay with, and then in 20 sessions when Scott and Kate...
Not okay with that.
Sorry?
Liz is not okay with that.
Yeah. Like, do you really want to be 20 sessions in when Scott and Kate are like slopping around all over, macking on everybody?
Slopping around.
Because Cobalt of Doom asks, yeah, you have to consider what kind of artificial are you? Are you a beep boop Chrome, or are you a reboot Cylon, or in the world of
slopping around, Scott.
Slopping around. In the world of Android, for instance, there are two types of artificial beings. There are clones who are biological through and through, but they just happen to be clones bred for specific purposes. And there are bioroids. And bioroids are essentially robots with brains, but bioroids have achieved a certain form of sentience. And then you could get into the idea of, okay, well, what if you mix the two and you've created what is essentially a biological being, but it has an artificial mind? Or it's a robotic character, but it has organic parts, right? All of these things we can discuss because we want to find where on the spectrum of robot you want to be.
Yeah, and another thing I want to say is I'm very cognizant of creating... I don't want to create a character just to be different from the other two. And I don't want every scene, every time my character opens their mouth, to be like, oh, there's the robot talking again. Like, I'm not interested in like being the scene hog in that regard. Like, I'm interested in the challenge that it would present, but only if it could be blended into what everybody else wants to do.
What's interesting is that you're not a Star Trek fan.
Well, it's not that I'm not a Star Trek fan. I just never gave it a chance.
Yeah, but I that's what I mean. I'm not saying that you hate Star Trek. It's just that you're not, because one of the key points there is in Star Trek The Next Generation, one of the main characters is an android whose name is Data. And his character arc over the entire series is he desperately wishes that he was more human, but he is not. And yet, little by little, he's acting more a little bit. He never hits humanity, but he realizes that he, like, the humans on board can still relate with him and can still find him, like, be friends with him and all of that. He discovers his own ways of feeling emotion compared to humanity, sort of thing. But I don't have that frame of reference with you. And I've never watched Battlestar Galactica, for instance. So I don't know. I mean, I played the board game.
Haven't we all?
Oh, did we ever?
So many hours.
Oh, so many hours, so little payoff.
Hours. Woof, indeed. Yeah, and that's a challenge as well, because I'm wondering how hard it would be to literally improv as a character like that. Mm-hmm. Someone who's constantly processing new information and evolving emotionally without pushing it too far, too fast, but creating a satisfying arc for myself, mm-hmm. and for the other people at the table as well. But just like on the fly, basically taking all the things that Liz is afraid of doing, which is like improvising challenging things on the spot and right. just like yeeting them at her at once.
So I think how we're going to approach this is I'm going to give you an idea of the setting that we're going to kind of come forward with, right? Because one of the goals of the setting that we've already determined is be able to change as little of the rules of L5R as possible, that we're renaming things, we're repurposing things. Like a sword will still exist in our universe and you roll the same as you would have rolled with any other kind of sword, but now it's a vibro sword. Now it's a nano sword. Now it's like but we don't have to change anything because that's that. In much the same way that we are going to have to come up with a reason why we don't have guns in this. And I already kind of know about that sort of thing. But once we get the setting down, I think it might be a bit easier for you to sort of say like, okay, well, this is where I can slot in.
This is where I fit in, yeah.
Because I do think that it's a legitimate question. Are you one of a million? Are you one of one? Yeah. Or one of 10? A question that was asked earlier, are you a second-class citizen or not? Considering that this setting is very much that the AI have advanced beyond human control, the singularity has occurred, there are different ways to interpret that, because humanity may have distrust of artificial intelligence, but they may also recognize that if they mess around with too much AI, they could suffer for it, right? So I think a lot of this is going to be things that we're just going to have to sit down and talk about, but it's one of the things that you and I tend to do at the start of campaigns, which I love. Yeah, because I will say that out of the 3 players that we have in this group, you're the one who likes going outside just a little more than the other 2, and that's not any kind of complaint, nor is it saying that the other 2 are somehow less creative. But you're the one who kind of comes up and says, "Can I do this?" Even if it's not typical.
I push and I poke.
So, like, if Requiem asking, would Liz's hypothetical character be illegal? Well, see,
it's possible.
It's possible.
That's an idea.
But I would have to say that if she was illegal, my initial reaction would be that it's not obvious that she's illegal. That's it.
Because this goes back to the thing, I'm not interested in every single scene being, how can we hide the fact that Liz's character is an android?
Right.
Because that's another way of scene hogging, right? So I want to find a sustainable way that I can be with this group of PCs and do things completely unrelated to the fact that I'm an android. And every so often, maybe I have plot hooks and background elements that do crop up, but that's the same for any PC. So the characterization is what I'm challenging myself with, and the arc is what I'm challenging myself with, but I don't want every single scene to revolve around this reality. So that's the challenge that I'm really excited to talk to John about, because I think we're both on the same page that if it's not possible, we're not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. I can play an android in a video game one day in my life. It will happen.
Or another game that we'll be playing in the future. The way that I would look at it, I think, is if we look at Changeling, the streaming, there were times where absolutely one character's story was coming to the fore. Braum being the amnesiac, Red Branch Knight. Sometimes, no one cared about the fact that Braum couldn't remember things because it wasn't applicable. And then sometimes that was the key. That was the important thing. Sophia being the mover and shaker in nobility, that came into play much more at the end of the Chronicle when you were like, nah, I don't want to be a knight anymore. Let's fucking go. Right?
Woo!
That made a difference. And then there were times where it was like, okay, well, let's see what it is to be a knocker. I mean, it was a knocker freehold and all that. And that's when Kate's character would come to the fore. But I don't want to base an entire campaign around one character. That's not the kind of group you are. It's like
chapters in a story. We had the Braum chapter, the Sophia chapter, the Patches chapter, and yeah. So that's I think more what I'm saying. Like, I'm fine with some plot arcs revolving around my character's shit, but not. I don't want to make it a storm cloud that follows us around all the time.
Mm-hmm. For some groups, that's exactly what they want. There's some games where that's kind of the whole point. The Buffy the Vampire Slayer role-playing game assumes that there's one Slayer and everyone else is just a part of her gang. And that's, for some groups, that sounds great. I would fucking hate that. Right? Like, I just would not like it because I wouldn't like the idea that I was a deuteragonist in a game where I want to be a protagonist if I'm a player. I want to be like important. And sure, they'll throw me a storyline, but in the end, we're all there to support one character who's just more powerful than the rest of us. Ugh.
Yeah, it's hard. Because we like to have our moments to shine as well.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that everybody has that chance.
Yeah.
So it looks like we've got a conversation ahead of us. Some of this conversation is going to be taking place off camera, I assume, because that's kind of how we work. I'm already gearing up for the Facebook Messenger. Hey.
Like, hey, so I was thinking. Yeah. Hey, John, just an idea. But ignore this if you don't have time. Hey, so something yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that, and that's going to have to start happening soon. You're right that Kung Fu Fighters, the Buffy RPG, has a different setup. That the Scooby Gang has a lot more dramatic currency to change the story. I still don't like that concept for me. Some groups it would be great. I don't like the idea that I can change the story, but I'm just not the important one. Like, that doesn't do it.
Well, it's literally the chosen one trope, right? When one person in a group is the chosen one. It's hard.
Yeah.
No matter how cool you are, you weren't chosen. So fuck you.
You know what also kind of bothers me is the dynamic of I'm the chosen one, but then there's somebody next to me who's clearly way more competent than me at everything. And yet somehow, since I guess I'm the bravest.
It's the Harry Potter Hermione syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that what you're thinking of?
Exactly. Like Hermione is, by all measures, except for maybe bravery, she is the better person in all ways. But she's not the chosen one because she's not the one who tried to get killed. Also, if she's Gryffindor, shouldn't she be brave as well? What the fuck? She ends up.
Oh my god! Don't forget to gripe about how you're chosen and just want a normal life. Yep.
Anyone remember where in book 5 Harry just starts writing in all caps?
The angst.
Yeah.
The angst is real.
I do think the why me is pretty common. I mean, Frodo throws out a why me every once in a while. I guess the issue is that if it happens all the time, then at that point you could be like, okay, well, you're not the chosen one anymore. Like, fuck off. We've got better things to do.
Don't want it? Fine, we've got others. It's okay.
No. Cobalt of Doom says the chosen one trope works in tabletop role-playing games. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry, I lie. The chosen one trope works in tabletop role-playing games when people know they are appreciated and players, not characters, are aware that they are critical support that the chosen one just could not do what they do, unlike, say, Xander and Willow with crippling self-doubt. See, I think it just depends on the group. I think that if you had a group where you had like 3 players who were a bit more casual and 1 player who was really into it, that might work. And I think that you have some people who are like, I as a player don't feel comfortable stepping forward and taking initiative, so I'd really rather be support for someone else, in which case that could be amazing. But that's not my group. I really just don't get that impression from my group at all. They like supporting each other. They absolutely do, but they don't like surrendering that support by default.
Yeah.
Which is also why I don't think I'd ever want to have, as a group, one of you being like, oh yeah, so I'm playing a noble paladin and this is my squire. Right? Like,
yeah.
But other groups are different, and that's the help.
Well, that's it. It's all about finding, like, we struggle with any elements of a game that we can't role play our way through. Whereas other gaming groups, I think, are much more comfortable using the dice and using their stats to get over these hurdles, which is wonderful. Like, it's just about how different, and that's why it's so important to keep looking for the right group for you, because how you play may not be how the other people at your table play. Yep. And it's okay to find a group that's more conducive to your play style. And it's not a failure on anyone's part. It's about compatibility.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I have really good friends who I don't think I want to role play with all that much.
Oh, fuck yeah.
You know, like
it's
one shot.
It's the roommate thing too, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can love someone to death and not want to live with them.
Oh, for sure.
So.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we got going on for you tomorrow?
Okay, tomorrow, assuming that I'm not knocked out by my booster. Hi, Super Dylan!
It's Super Dylan!
Super Dylan!
Super Dylan. Oh, Super Dylan's especially cool right now.
Yes, so we're gonna have to tell Super Dylan something.
Yes, we are.
Super Dylan has been informed beforehand. Anyway, tomorrow at 3, we are starting. Okay, y'all, get fucking stoked, because we are starting the Clue of the Whistling Bagpipes.
Are you starting that on Friday?
Oh, Jesus Christ, today is Thursday.
It's Thursday.
Never mind. This is Saturday. Ignore this. Tomorrow at 6, the Punch Effect at 6 p.m. my channel, Mass Effect 2. Bada boom, bada boom. Saturday, the Clue of the Whistling Bagpipes, 3 p.m. my channel. Oh my God, look, it was all correct.
And then Sunday? Are we announcing that?
Scott, are you streaming tomorrow night? Or no, Saturday night? Yeah. He is. Scott's streaming Saturday night as well.
What about Sunday though? Are we saying what we're playing on Sunday?
Yes.
I think we can.
I think we can.
Yeah.
Do it, John.
No. You can, or just drag Scott's ass in here and he can say
Scott,
it.
do you want to announce what we're doing Sunday? He's coming in. Cobalt
of Doom, Mass Effect 3 is considered spoiler territory for RPG Clinic right now, as Liz and Scott have not played it yet.
That's right.
Do it.
Do it, you coward.
Coward!
Scott, you gotta move in a little bit more. There you go.
That's the ticket. On Sunday, we're continuing RPG Clinic's one-shots as we wait for an appropriate moment to be able to play this campaign in person and other exciting things. But we're continuing our one-shots with a creation by chat superstar Super Dylan. We're going to be playing Guys in Chairs, which is available for purchase on Super Dylan's website, etc. I'm really jazzed to try it out. It looks like a lot of fun. It's a one-pager where you play.
Don't look at the chair.
Don't look at it.
Look at Scott.
Yeah, where you play as the BFFs of superheroes who have to save the world, and you're the only one who can help them. It's good times. I'm really excited about it.
By kissing them.
So you're the
What?
Genki,
Is that not-
you're the Jimmy Olsen, you're the. I mean, I guess Oracle was a superhero in her own right, but she wasn't a chair.
That's.
We're all going to be in chairs, so
It's true.
we will all be sitting in chairs.
Guys in chair.
I'm so excited.
Yes, me too.
This was Scott's suggestion,
Hey.
and cannot wait. Cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Front row seats.
Baby!
We're gonna have nice cushioned chairs at the front, little cocktail tables.
You'll have a reserved sign and everything.
No my.
Reserved.
chat
For superstar.
Hey.
5 p.m. on Sunday. Did we
That's
say that?
correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Eastern.
5
None of
p.m.
that
Eastern.
Pacific crap.
What the hell?
Sorry.
Suck it, West Coast.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm so sorry. I love the West Coast. I think I've ruined it.
Look at this chair.
This is the
Oh,
several
God.
cats have been at
I
this
haven't
for a
even
long
looked
time.
at it in a long time. Oh, it's terrible.
You need a
You're
pink
gonna hate looking
Sharpie.
at you're gonna hate looking at the arms of this chair too.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's held together by duct tape and sadness. Anyway.
I'm
Hey.
making dinner, but thanks for the stream.
Thanks for
God.
being in on this. Appreciated.
He's heating up some chili that we made yesterday.
I will also say that if you are knocked the F out, I most likely will be able to step in. I'm not saying that I want to. I'm saying that if you can't stream tomorrow because of the boost, because I think both you and Scott got it today.
We got them. Oh, it was great. We made the reservations like 10 minutes apart, but we ended up just kind of following each other around the whole vaccination center, like all at different tables, and then we ended up leaving at the same time to go to the salle d'attente.
Which arm?
Left.
Yeah.
And every time the nurse is like, "Oh, I love your tattoo." I'm like, "Thanks." Ow.
I love your tattoo. I'm gonna stab it.
Just a stabber in the fucking. Yeah. Oh, a nice sweater with a good-looking print. Oh, that is a really good idea, at least not.
Because on my channel, at least on Wednesday, the current plan is to start playing through The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but with Twitch chat having the opportunity to screw with the game.
John.
To add things to my inventory or take things away. I think at some point they can set me on fire if they want to. They can reverse my controls. We'll see how that goes. But we have the ability to try, so we're gonna have a look at that. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all of your cool, interesting insights, questions, and all that. We got to do one with Kate. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that next week. But for now, I gotta remind all of you that if you are experiencing some dissatisfaction when you're role playing, your best bet, not the easiest bet, but your best bet, is to do what?
And use your word hole.
Use your word hole. That's what we were looking for.
Oh shit!
That's
I
what
can
we're
do
looking
both.
for. We'll see you next
hole.
time.